Good morning and welcome everybody to this very exciting webinar today, 26th of May 2017. We are talking to you from the headquarters here in Brussels, and for a 30-minute webinar focusing on the Vision 2030, Welcome to our Future. You have all received yesterday an email, a bulk email signed by our president, Tino, and by Christian Evert, our Director General. And this morning we want to go with you through the more information about the Vision 2030. We have an agenda that you can see on the screen with several points. First of all, we are going to explain you why such a new strategic vision for the organization was needed. We are going to give you more information about how the Vision 2030 has been developed since many months now, explain you the new future vision of our organization, how we are going to reshape our organization, how this new vision is going to be expressed through a new branding, and finally, what this concretely means for you, our members. Once Christian will have gone through this presentation, we invite you to a 15-minute session of FAQ. You can either voice your question orally, or you can also use the question bar, which is on the right side of the screen, to type your questions that will be answered later on by Christian. Christian, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, and also from my side, very good morning to all of you. Well, as you could see from Stephanie, we are already 1 month ahead of time, so we still have the 26th of April, but we are so keen to move towards our General Assembly, as you can see. Well, as Stephanie said, this is really going to be an exciting, or it is an exciting day for us to really share with you, let's say, quite a bit of work that we have gone through over the last 9 months, and now really share the outcome with you. All right, so now we also have caught up on the slides. Well, when you look at the slide, I mean, you see here the 3 Ps. And why do we mention people, planet, and profit in a certain way? Because these 3 Ps are a bit of a theme as long as we go through our project, our Vision 2030. We are change makers, and we will come to the need of change and the ongoing situation that change is happening throughout. What is important for us here is that this is something that we really have around you as our members, that we really are concentrating on the buying side, but then as well as the producer side, so that we really cover the supply chains that you are using. But let's, for a moment, look at where we are today. And I think it's an exciting moment when we consider that our 40th anniversary, our birthday, so to say, is just around the corner. And when you consider where we started out 40 years ago as a small dedicated organization to trade, we really then had a leap forward with the start, with the launch of BACI in 2003, then becoming one of the very few organizations globally that really combine sustainability under one roof, really complementing the Swift trade. Well, membership numbers, yes, we managed 1,900 last year, but this is really only a number. What is important when you look at our sort of mission that we currently use as being the leading business association of global commerce that promotes the values of international trade and sustainable supply chains, and that really expresses itself in free trade dot sustainable trade. And you will see as we go through the presentation that we see this as a more holistic approach going forward, that we really create unity under one roof. Yes, we do have 40 years of experience, and we have exciting experience. Again, going back to 77, when really a handful of members started, we have really become one of the largest players in our space. And this is relevant and important really to sort of communicate and really capitalize on the leverage that we are creating. We have really been, I think, a change agent when it comes to sustainability, whether it is, almost 15 years now on the social side and for a shorter period now with the API, but we're really moving into a direction to become even more meaningful. Also, when you look at our representation, and many of you may remember when I started a bit over 2.5 years ago, I think we really have embarked on a journey to open our scope in the context of being more outgoing. I mean, moving closer to our members in the European context when it comes to our local NCG networks, but also internationally in terms of ensuring that we have representation in the key sourcing markets that are so important to you. We had another really important highlight last year, and this was really with the board election we had. I mean, the majority of our board members, became new, were new faces. And I think the most important change in this context, in fact, it was not just new faces, but it also their sort of scope of their focus in terms of work and in experience shifted a lot from the trade, from a pretty exclusive trade side to well over 70% towards the sustainability side. And I think this was also a really important signal for us to see, yes, there is a bit of a shift here, and sustainability is a core function and the most important one. This really took us why a new strategic vision for our organization is needed. And this we're going to share with you over the next 20 minutes. Well, most of you will be familiar with the UN Millennium Goals that concluded in 2015, actually with surprisingly positive results, even in certain areas overperforming. But maybe more importantly, it was then that the United Nations adopted and launched the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. Well, when we talk about our 2030 vision, you probably get an idea where the number is coming from. Yes, that is something that we took really as a guiding principle from there. When you look at where we stand in 2017, 40 years after our founding, most of the trade barriers have been lifted. And especially when you look in the tariff area, I remember 77, not that I was all that much interested back then in trade, maybe more in very small transactional trade for sweets and stuff like this. But everything that got imported had an average of 28+% duty, which has now been reduced to around 1.8. So I think in the sort of really tariff area, significant progress has been made. Obviously, also when you look at non-tariff areas, we see that global value chains have become the new normal, so to say. We are acting globally, but on the other side, we also see certain developments that have really raise reason for concern when you look at political and economical protectionism, and especially when you look towards the West, we have an individual that is very much into this. I think when we look at our own trade, our own sort of core, where we are coming from, the retail side, we see tremendous change in continuous growth of online commerce versus really the more traditional brick and mortar business. I think this is also going to cause significant changes. And when you just look at the development in the United States, in the first 3 months of 2017, 86,000 retail jobs were lost. I mean, you may say in the larger context, this is not a gigantic number, but I think just in the first 3 months of this year, this is a pretty impressive number, and I think further supports the direction that we are seeing. But last but not least, and I think I regard this as a positive development, there is recognition for let's say, a responsible global commerce. There is a recognition that sustainability, not trade at all costs, is on the rise and is being seen by the various players that we have, and that we will be capitalizing on. I really want to share this one slide here with you, and humanity will change more in the next 20 years than in all of human history. I mean, I personally find it totally exciting. I mean, this is, well, almost 1/3 of my lifetime, so I have a good chance to still see the next 20 years, inshallah. While it is really exciting, on the other side it also is a bit, sends you down a bit of a cold shiver when you think, well, wow, everything will change more in the next 20 years. But Thomas Frey, as a futurist, I think this is his privilege. I mean, he knows much more. But it's for sure we live in exciting times. But what does it mean for us? The FTA not only needs to adapt to change, but we want to thrive. We really want to benefit from this. We want to share this with one more slide just to look at some of the predicted key statistics by 2030. Fine, we're going to go from a 7 billion plus population to 8.4. Well, an important element is that we will have 2.4 billion babies born between 2014 and 2030 to make that happen. An important development is, and as you probably will know, that in China, for example, since 2 years more than 50% of the Chinese population is living in urban areas, and this trend is going to continue. On the other side, we were just talking about e-commerce and the development here. Just look at 4.8 billion internet users worldwide, 10.1 billion mobile phone subscriptions. Well, we joke in the office, people not going to run only with one phone, but they will hold both hands with phones going forward. But it's really a interesting development. And maybe the last point to really highlight here is 480 million single-person households. Really a trend, not only across Asia, but even in Europe and the United States, is significantly on the rise. Well, that takes us now to, let's say, an evaluation of, let's say, what is our competitive landscape? How does that look like? And, you know, we have broken this down, one on the policy side, when it really comes more to advocacy policy, governmental affairs, and the trade-related area. You see we are well positioned here, but there is quite a number of players, smaller and larger ones. The same when you look at the sort of sustainability competition that we have around. Of course, you see SEDEX, you see EICC, REPIC, and so on. But again, we, I think, have a very solid position here. An interesting one is when you then really look at who's covering all three areas. That's a pretty lonely planet here. But I think this is also one of our key differentiators and something really exciting from our point of view, that there is just simply no other organization that covers this all. So the time is now a time for change. And as such, I'm now happy to really introduce the development of Vision 2030. Although we also try to keep you informed throughout the process. I think we started actually as early as July last year, when with the announcement from Tino Zeiske, also our president. Really important was that this is to be an inclusive process, not something that the Secretariat is doing behind closed doors. No, not at all. It really was initiated through the board, and then, yes, we executed on the day-to-day business, but really important was that we had a task force on our side, not just being a simple task force, but a group consisting of board members, BSI steering committee, and chairs from the national contact group. So quite a variety of individuals, because we really wanted to make sure we are on the right path here. This was supported by members that we consulted with. Some of you may recall that we sent out surveys. Some of you were called directly in September 2016. And yes, we also had this dialogue with external stakeholders to gain a better understanding how they think and feel where we need to go. So I believe from our point of view, it really was an inclusive process. When I look at input, and this is really based on internal 5 working groups, you know, identifying different areas. We had a brainstorming workshop with a large number of team members. We were looking at objectives 2017-18 and really taking all the input into account. There was a lot of, I think, if I remember correctly, well over 500 input items. So we try to kind of wrap our hands around it and really come up with what we call super clusters. So the outcome were actually 5 objectives, goals and strategies I'm going to share with you just in a minute. At the same time, I briefly want to share, you know, a really well planned through step-by-step approach. We started with the strategy. I think this makes sense. At the same time, we started to look at our governance because we wanted to ensure the governance actually represents an inclusive process, that we have member participation. Yes, we looked at branding of the FTA. Well, and the last step, I think that makes sense, or you can understand the bylaws need to reflect whatever changes we want to introduce. So, a new vision for the future. And we had quite a number of discussions before we finally came up with our vision. A world where all trade delivers social, environmental, and economic benefits for everyone. It is ambitious, there is no question about it. It is aspirational, but I think from our point of view, this really is a very elegant translation of the 3 Ps. People, planet, yes, and profit. After all, we are a business association, and we are convinced that only thriving business can also be change agents, especially when it comes to sustainable trade. When we look at the mission, how do we want to really bring this to fruition? How do we want to make this happen? So we enable organizations, and that's primarily our members, to enhance human prosperity, use natural resources responsibly, and drive open trade globally. And of course, this takes into consideration that we have all the supply chains included here. And we really identified 3 key values that really support our mission. This is leadership. We want to be a leading force for creating positive change. It was a very clear decision by the board that we don't want to be a follower, not an early adopter. We want to be seen as a leader in our space. We thoroughly believe in collaboration, and also a brief bridge to SDG number 17 that is all about collaboration, foster collaborative networks. And I think it's especially important in the context when you consider we're not going to be able to cover the whole supply chains from A to Z. We will only be able to cover certain parts, and then it is important to have partners on the front and back end. And yes, well, yes, we believe in excellence, and we want to certainly meet your expectations here. And we understand, yes, there is room for improvement in all we do. That brings us to an evolution of the FTA. And when I look at, you know, as I said, the mission statement is slightly adopted. Now we are the leading business association of global commerce that enables organizations to enhance human prosperity, use natural resources responsibly, and drive open trade globally. Important is when you look at the right-hand side. And trade with purpose gives you the first hint in our branding perspective. This is really something, again, where I believe that 3 words express, you can interpret everything that we are all about. Trade with purpose through a consolidated and expanding offering. And we really want to show the sort of connectivity, the interlinkages of environmental, social, and economic factors here. Well, that results in a certain element that we need to reshape our organization, and I will now come back but I will present now what we call the Greek building. I presented the vision to you, followed by the mission, and now we also briefly talked about the values, but more importantly are now 5 key objectives. All right. Yeah, here they are. And we really identify them as build, support, inspire, grow, and prosper. But I will take you through each of them just very briefly to give you an idea what we mean in more detail. So when it is built our organization to be fit for the future, this is really something that is specifically around us. You know, how do we make sure that we remain strong, flexible, relevant, that we can really live up to the expectations of our membership, that we create change, that we can also scale this up. So this is much about the FTA itself. When we look at support, this is really all about our members. We want to be seen as a center of intelligence and expertise so that we can really in a proper way respond to your expectations, to the evolving needs that you have, and that we provide you with the tools that you want, that you need in order to effectively manage your supply chains so that it is really creating a mutually beneficial partnership with multi-stakeholders all around the world. When we now move to inspiration or to inspire, this is when we take the scope a little larger. This is really action around the world. We want to show individuals and organizations how they can promote open and responsible trade, how, and some of you will remember that we launched a document, we call it the FTA Focus, Is Bangladesh a Success Case, some almost 1.5 years ago. We want to be seen as a thought leader really for good practice, a thought leader that will really walk the talk and make the changes, will support trade policies and develop a network of ambassadors. And the ambassadors is really, we have a large diplomatic community, so to say, starting with our team, our offices around the world, but also our members. But we will come back to your role in the end. Number 4, this is really grow high-performing people, to become a leader of sustainability tomorrow. I believe one very important element is that we succeed for the generations to come, that sustainability is not just a buzzword, but it's really finding its way, that it is embedded in the DNA of all organizations. We want to build the capabilities, the capacity of future leaders. It is important that we have C-suite members in the future that fully embark on this journey. And last but not least, prosper. And this is, I think, where we would like to close the loop when it comes back to our sustainable development goals. Here we really want to demonstrate how our members are contributing, each and individually or collectively, that we achieve, that we can meet, that we make our contribution to the SDGs. And you all are familiar with, well, that nice slide here. We have actually identified 6 core goals. I mean, no surprising, I mentioned 17 already in terms of networks and collaboration, obviously 8 when it comes to working conditions, 12, etc. So this is where we are gonna sort of collaboratively also work with other organizations in the space to ensure that we really first of all, do not reinvent the wheel, but we enable you to also see how and where we are supporting the SDGs. Well, let's move to a really exciting part. How do we express our new vision? So this is really all about the brand. And I know this is a bit of a tickling part here because a brand review may result in change, and since we are talking about change, yes, it has changed. What we really wanted is a brand that clearly communicates our vision and our purpose, and we found being challenged with a 3-brand strategy or 3-brand situation that we had so far. We wanted to make sure that we gain valuable perspectives on our current brands. This is what we did in September, that we really, reached out to stakeholders, to our members, in quantitative and qualitative approach, and we really want to make sure that the brand we come up with, is memorable and meaningful. But let me take you through this. The business with purpose and impact. This is really something interesting that we learned from a lot of the responses. business, building responsible value chains globally in which trade and sustainability work hand in hand. I believe this is the key reason for you joining the Foreign Trade Association, really to make sure that you can live up to this requirement. The purpose that we want to see smart growth, human prosperity for all. Okay, this is again a close link to the Sustainable Development Goals. And then the impact, how? I mean, how do we deliver this purpose through, in this context, really holistic, innovative and efficient, simple solutions? These are the tools that you already are using and the tools that we are going to develop. I mean, let me just mention the dashboards and other programs that we have in our pipeline. And as I mentioned, we want to be able to demonstrate your contribution towards the SDGs. What is brand personality? When we looked at it, we came to the conclusion that we want to have 5. We want to have a human touch. We want to be seen global with a strong local footprint. I mean, this is where this expression global is coming from. We want to be seen as someone that is bonding with our members, with stakeholders, with the world. We are a doer. We really do what we say, and trustworthy. Yes, we walk the talk. I mean, we really develop tools, but then we also really implement them. And some of you will remember that I believe pretty much for the first time in December our board approved, for example, that we give 24 members the opportunity to go elsewhere because they were not meeting our minimum criteria. So if you would try to translate this into an individual, we want to be seen as an empowering coach who leads by example. Yes, I understand it's ambitious and it's aspirational, but this is where we are heading. Let's now look at our brand story. We're getting closer to the interesting part here. Well, the new name reflects our belief on trade as an instrument of human progress. I mean, without trade, humanity would clearly not be where we are today. Europe would not be there, the entire planet. There would be no Bangladesh success case. It's really an important element. Can everybody see Sarah? No, it's gone. All right. So amphorae were containers used to ship staples around the ancient world. Some of you will remember whether it was for grains, for wine, for olives, for oil. I think it was a very successful container, if you so want, really facilitating trade across large distances already. Well, and we want to something to symbolize the pioneering spirit and early global traders that really also clearly has the element of being timeless, essential to our past, but also absolutely carries forward into the future, and a name that is somehow inspired by the above. Well, and now take a deep breath. This is what it's going to be, if you all agree. I should say that. Amphorae, trade with purpose. And I have a few quick illustrations to give you an idea. This is how it could look outside our building. But let me help you a little bit through the concept of the logo, because I think it's important. You may be wondering what are these two circles here all around. We worked with a very professional, highly dedicated organization, BBDO, here in Belgium, and they, really came forward with the motto, as I said, the marketplace. I mean, we have seen marketplaces, the central market space in every village and town around the world, in fact, and over thousands of years. It has really been a tool to make transactions happening. Trade is happening in those marketplaces. I think we can clearly combine and associate bonding and connection with it. This is where people meet, this is where people talk. And as such, we really picked a symbol that really gets it all. You can see it as two elements that are bonded together. You can see it as a chain. You may even interpret this as part of an illustration of a supply chain. We really felt this really symbolizes very well where we want to go. Well, at the end of the day, also I have to say, it offers the opportunity that we may even have a logo in the future. But before we come to that point, I think we need to get this new name in the public. Well, again, this is how it generally looks. This is an important slide I will come back to in just a second to explain why you still see BACI and BPI, give you an idea on a leaflet, on illustrations that we may publish in the future, well, simply stationery and business cards. But let me now quickly tell you about the brand transition. So we are now in the process of announcing the brand to our members, and we are looking forward to our General Assembly in just 6-7 weeks to then officially have it concluded. As you can imagine, I mean, a rebranding with a new name will take a little bit of time to prepare for. I mean, whether it is on our websites, whether it's on the FDA Academy, whether it's presentations, you know, I mean, our roll-ups, there is quite a number of activities need to take place. As such, we're going to then use the 6 months until the end of the year, so that on the 1st of January we will have quite a big bang and the branding will change. We are not claiming everything will be changed, but at least let's say maybe 60-70%. Everything that has really a high day-to-day use. But now BACI and BPI. I have to say that, you know, and this is not surprising, BACI is clearly the most recognized, the most well-known brand within our organization, no question about it. On the other side, we were really driven, and the board was fully in favor of this, that it is of utmost importance that we really show unity, that we combine everything under one roof now. But on the other side, we want to give you as the members, but also the producers and stakeholders, an element of recognition for a limited period of time. So this will be, we call it our roadmap 2018-2020. So this is our midterm plan for 3 years. So during that period, we will be using the acronyms BACI and BPI, but only the acronyms, to still reflect on the social and environmental sustainability activities. So as such, they will really just remain as product names. Starting from 2020, 2021, and I think this also depends, this is something we're going to look at, how does the recognition in the marketplace take place. We will then drop the 2 acronyms and will in the future really go for Amfori Sustainability Services. But now importantly, what does it mean for you? And this is when we need to start talking about our governance. And I think it's important to keep in mind that our current governance was outdated in certain ways. I mean, there's not even BPI mentioned. BACI as a steering committee was limited to the social part. We wanted a simple and more flexible structure, really a sort of demand from the board. And we wanted to have a higher degree of information sharing and transparency throughout our decision-making process. That means that the structure in a very simplistic way is going to look like what you see here. I think what is important to keep in mind is you see boxes with dotted lines inside, and this is really an important difference here. All the bold ones are bodies, governance bodies, that are reflected, mentioned, and clearly defined in our bylaws, whereas the ones with dotted lines will be defined, well, as we say at the bottom, through internal rules that are adopted by the board of directors. A key motivation is here that we have a higher degree of flexibility, and we do not have to go even for a comma that you change in the bylaws to the General Assembly. Important is that the decision-making power fully remains in the hands of our members through the board of directors. There is 2 new bodies that you will not have seen like this before. It's the Member Advisory Council and the Stakeholder Advisory Council. So basically the BACI Steering Committee is morphing into a Member Advisory Council because we wanted a body that incorporates all 3 elements. all 3 P's, if you so want, or PPT. I mean, we want to have people, planet, and the trade aspect really covered in this, and really a direct sort of connection to the board of directors on one side and then to the secretariat, because this is an important body to work with. Stakeholder Advisory Council, you will remember we used to have a stakeholder council directly connected to the steering committee, and also this one we wanted to sort of grow and really enable to represent all the 3 areas that are relevant. And on the network side, we want to go through a bit of a change where we recognize that we now have more and a growing number of local networks. NCG is really a term that we understand internally, and as such, looking at the global compact terminology, we said networks, that actually sounds very nice. So in the future we will have global networks, whether in Hong Kong, in the Netherlands, in Switzerland, or in Germany or Bangladesh, and we will have network representatives going forward. When I quickly look at the impact on some of the important governance bodies we have, General Assembly, this is where, let's say, the key decisions are being made and no changes are foreseen. So as such, when you look at the slide, there is no surprises. There have been no changes introduced. When I move on to the next body, our board of directors, there is an adjustment of the scope, and I think this was more to really give them the opportunity to focus on the strategic guidance and more monitoring, and really delegating the day-to-day execution towards the secretariat. So as such, there will continue to be 10 representatives from the membership. Decisions are being made by simple majority, no change, and some of the powers have remained the same as in the past. What we, for example, took away due to the rapid growth of our organization, that the Secretariat approves the application of new members, but on the other side, should we refuse this, a new member, for example, could then turn to the board to get this checked whether this is in line. When we look at committees and councils, Finance Committee, no change. Member Advisory Council, Stakeholder Advisory Council, this I already mentioned briefly. And then, you see ad hoc committees and councils. Let's say we have a specific larger project that could have quite an impact on us as an organization, then the board would have in its sort of wisdom the opportunity to say, all right, we would like to have a council with 3 board representatives and people from let's say the membership in large to look into this. And we decided to discontinue the management committee as it was no longer used. As it comes to the Director General or the Secretariat as such, this is really that we execute the board's decisions, we run the day-to-day management. I also feel very comfortable that we can live up to this. We really have a very professional team here in Brussels and around the world. So as such, we have slightly opened and broadened the scope, but for example, when you look at the second point, admission, sanction, and exclusion of members, there's always an appeal opportunity for such affected members to go then to the board. But we really wanted to take this ongoing or repetitive work away from the board. Country representatives and coordinators, I believe I covered already, so we are streamlining the terminology. There is one important element I would like to highlight here in terms of our membership growth. We have members so far has remained a bit of an orphan membership category as we professional services. But we are faced while we're growing, especially internationally and in countries that use primarily common law, where organizations have challenges to, for example, adhere or meet with all the elements of Amphoris operating documents. To be more specific, for example, our terms of implementation. So we are trying to create a category where organizations with certain limitations have an opportunity to still contribute towards our global growth, really reduce audit redundancy, etc. But maybe a quick reference, we have shared a number of documents with you, which I think you can see on the next slide here. So these three documents, I would very much like you to take the time to please look through it, because you will find even more explanation there. So in terms of next steps, this has been sent out to you actually last night. And in terms of next steps, you will be receiving by mid-May quite a bit of documentation. We decided we will send you some information in print, because it is quite important that you all come on the 14th of June for our General Assembly. I mean, you shaping your future, you shaping our future. And well, I also have to say the team has really worked tirelessly on making the evening a very special event. We don't turn 40 every other day. So I would very much like to encourage you to unleash the opportunities for yourself when you come to Brussels. Well, let me now one more time come back to where you find information. Some of you will know that we actually have a dedicated FDA Vision 2030 website. So please feel free to visit and again look at our information packages that we have available. Well, and now I'm done with my monologue. I hope I managed to take you along on this exciting journey, and we look forward to answering any questions you may have had. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christian. From you members joining this webinar, we have received so far 2 questions that I'm going to raise to you, Christian, immediately. I just want before to remind people to write your question in the box on the right of the screen. We have, I would say, 5 minutes still to go, so take this opportunity to raise directly your question to Christian. The first question, Christian, I think you answered it already. It was, how can we get more material and this presentation after the webinar? Will we share it?
We absolutely will share it. I mean, we're all about transparency. And as I just mentioned, yeah, on top of the information packages that we have out there in the website, you will find the presentation.
Okay. The second question comes from a Smarter Vigilant member who tells us that he looked on Google and found that there is another website called amphoris.com. So his question is, did we register the name because it seems there could be other businesses having a similar name?
I think this is a very smart question. And in fact, we spent really the last week, I also have to admit, spending a bit of money in registering not only our URLs, but also trademarks around the globe so that we are in safe hands. So our sort of email or our URL actually is going to be amphoris.org.
We don't have any other questions, so I will take the opportunity to raise a few of the questions that I could imagine is very relevant for our members. Those changes that you presented, do they have an impact on the implementation of BSCI 2.0 or the implementation of BPI?
Thank you, Stephanie. That's very helpful. Because I think I almost, I actually may have slipped to mention this. What is really important for us in the overall context is we are not reinventing the wheel here. We have been, with the support of our members, been highly successful for the last 40 years, and especially since we started our sustainability activity. So I'm not saying it's going to be business as usual, but we clearly identify that what we have created is such a strong foundation on which we will build. Remember the 5 objectives with build support, have a strong and powerful tools. Of course, we have those in place, but we will further develop, and as Stephanie just said, 2.0 will only be strengthened over a period of time, and only 6 new ones have been identified. And again, this is also not that we, have to start everything on the 1st of January 2018. No, in fact, we do have 13 years of time. And so we will also be using the remainder of 2017 to really spend time and then deciding when do we start what major new goal, so that we have time that we can also properly embed this in our existing processes.
Thank you, Christian. In the meanwhile, we receive other questions. Thank you. One of the questions is to ask if BSCI and BPI as two initiatives will continue to be separate in the future.
No, the very short answer would be no. Now they're gonna be, we will have one joint sustainability offering. It is very clear when you look at the sort of the requirements, the knowledge, the areas on the social and the environmental side, there is significant content differences. What you will have noticed 2 years ago, we created the FDA sustainability activities with the 2 acronyms, BSCI and BPI, but we will even go one step beyond. By 2030, we will expect all our members, and we have quite a number of members that actually for the time being only use our services related to trade and governmental affairs. All members in the future at a moment in time still to be defined will have to commit to sustainability. We have very large members. I'm not going to mention them by name, but let's say I pick a large sports goods manufacturer. They have actually a phenomenal in-house sustainability program. There would be no need. But we will carefully see, and we will expect those members to have either something in-house or maybe commit to someone else. So as such, there will be a differentiation as far as the technical issues are concerned, but it will be embedded in one sustainability system. And also, as we are now working on our new platform, this will be an integrated platform covering social and environmental issues.
Okay, so I see that questions continue to come. That's very good. So another question is, as we are going to actually go under one name, are we going to take this opportunity to simplify the access to the different tools, or will we keep the different login details for the platform, the academy and the website? A question related to this is if the BSCI platform and sustainability dashboard will change their name for unfolding.
6 months after the GA in 2017, that we update our sort of appearance on the websites and various tools, also presentations, whether it's on producer level for the auditor training, etc. So this is, well, I would really say this is when we are rebranding our material online, digital and in print.
Another question that we receive is, will that change the members' obligation, the changes that you described?
Not at all. It will not be affected in any way.
Another question was if this example or there's this new category that you mentioned, the affiliate membership category, if you could illustrate that with examples of companies that could potentially become affiliate members. Type of company.
Yeah, we currently have interest from a number of American organizations, and I think it is a common knowledge that the United States has a kind of a, allow me to call it a bit of a litigation society approach. And when you make a commitment to some extent, this actually opens the opportunity to litigate. And as such, you know, there are large brands in the sort of entertainment industry. There are very large organizations in the retail sector that are very interested to work with us. And I have to say, I mean, have happily been sort of viewed the BSCI audit results in the past. Now these organize on a growing membership and really, for example, you know, create relief and duplication of audits. So this is the direction that we are pursuing. I would also like to point out, as this is not going to be a very large number of members, we are just defining the criteria for this membership category. Those are all organizations that will have to prove really their commitment to sustainability. We will have a third party to verify this. It's not even ourselves. There is going to be a higher membership fee in order to cover for this extra expense. And also important, you know, I mentioned before that the Secretariat or myself will be empowered to sort of grant membership applications. Affiliate member applications will always have to be approved by the Board of Directors, as we really want to make sure, you know, this happens on an exceptional basis and the board is fully comfortable with a member in that category. I hope that answers it somehow.
Thank you. Well, there's a lot of participation and a lot of members asking questions. So I'm sorting out the different questions we received because we can categorize them. There's also a question related to what you to the, let's say, governance. We have a question asking if the board and the steering committee consider there is enough time to go to all the changes that are proposed before the General Assembly, and how could members who want to make suggestions or contribute to the discussion participate?
Wow, this is almost a bit a legal question, so I'm on the thin ice here. What I would like to say is that the steering committee as well as the board has been part and parcel of the entire development process throughout. And you know, especially when it comes to the governance structure in terms of removing the BSCI steering committee, which in effect will stay in place until the end of the year. You know, it was very important to create this member advisory board. So as such, the body, really the member representation continues to maintain, rather it is even expanded so that we invite broader participation from the membership side. Again, there is this direct connection to the Board of Directors, and the Board of Directors has the obligation, if the membership advisory council would like to discuss a topic on board level, that they can submit such a topic. So we really want to make sure that this is more an inclusive process. On the other side, we have a more professional secretariat in place that really decisions are being made by the board, and please keep in mind that this is now 70% sustainability representatives, that we really take the majority of our members that come really from that side are properly listened to. As far as the membership contribution is concerned in the run-up to the General Assembly, I believe there is legal opportunity to submit issues actually in writing up front. But that, you know, will come along, explanations will come along with the package that we are sending out. I would also like to mention in this context that we not only have a webinar today, but there is going to be another one in May. And our team, well, they have been briefed in detail last Friday, will be ready to receive and answer as much as possible. Otherwise, we will then separately come back to you. But we also going to explain this in upcoming NCG meetings, and we also have said, you know, we're more than ready to do a roadshow, have smaller groups of members. If there's an expression of interest, we will have our team members come, explain and receive questions so that we can clarify this. We fully understand this. We want to be absolutely transparent about this, and the more questions, the better, because we really want to make sure that you really embark on this journey with us. Stephanie.
Okay. Another question that is coming is again about the governance. It's specifically related to the weighted voting system which will remain in the renewed bylaws. Can you explain the thinking behind?
Yeah, thank you for this. This is when we were looking at the bylaws, we really went through it article by article, and one of the articles is indeed the voting distribution or the voting rights per member category. And you know, we reviewed this, we looked at the success of using this model over the last, I believe, 6 years now. It was introduced in the current form in 2011, and I'm tempted to say don't change a winning team. It really has worked well. It has, it is corresponding to the level of involvement that we have from the membership. So we feel it is a well-functioning, a well-working mechanism, and therefore our recommendation to the members is not to change it, but keep it the way it is. Stephanie has one more question.
Yes, there are several questions. Well, we have actually a member who is currently developing their annual report, and they would like to know if they can already start using the Amfori logo in their 2016 report.
Now I have to frustrate you a tiny bit. I'm very sorry that Amfori will only come. Thank you for your understanding.
So I will take two questions continue to come in. So I will take two additional questions and then it will be 11, so time to close this webinar. Two questions actually related more to the governance again. One question is, what's the difference between the project groups and the current working groups?
Thank you for this important question. The idea of creating, or not creating, but changing the name into project groups is that we wanted to more give it the character of that this is going to be about a specific topic, and we believe in a start and an end point. It is absolutely going to follow the same sort of system in terms of, you know, that member representatives join these working groups and provide their input. But what we wanted, what the sort of the thinking behind is that we want to also have the opportunity that we recreate fresh groups when we have a new topic to look into, so that there is also a bit of rotation, that we get fresh blood among the membership involved. So from an internal rules point of view, this is under development, but will be primarily based on what you have seen in the past.
And then I will take a final question, and this one is actually coming from me. It's just to clarify, because I see several questions related to that, is can our members communicate already to their producers and their stakeholders about all those changes?
Yes and no. We have now two important dates coming up. One is the 14th of June, our General Assembly, where the new bylaws are to be adopted. Following that date, one can talk about it, we can share, we can openly discuss the name. I mean, it's even for the Secretariat a little awkward, because obviously, you know, the marketplace will hear about our new name sooner than later. but our team members at least are not in a position to talk about it until after the 14th of June, and this simply has to do with the governance process. And I also have to say I would not recommend to talk about unlaid eggs in a way, because we still need your approval, and and to handle this is a fait accompli and it's all done and dusted, I think would be the wrong message. The next period is then from the 15th of June through 31st of December 2017. This is really when we adopt everything. This is when you are very welcome to talk about it. We will actually encourage to use you, or we would love your support in making sure that producers, for example, understand, okay, nothing in terms of content is significantly changing. Yes, but we have repainted the building. We are really putting all our activities under one roof in order to be a strong organization going forward. So this is really an important part where we count on your support, and we will actually provide you with relevant material so that you can give this to your producers. We will do this in several languages, so to really ensure that this is fully understood. And of course our local offices, whether it's in Turkey, in Bangladesh, in India, and China, will support this process. And then really 1st of January, this is when we would be excited, when you start using our new logo and our new name whenever you refer to the future Amfori organization. Well, as Stephanie said, this I think was the last question. Maybe she's making an exception. I hand it back to Stephanie.
No, it's time now that we close this webinar. We receive a lot of questions, and this is excellent. So what we are going to do is those questions for which we did not have time to answer during this webinar, we will have a written answer later today. And there are also questions which are very practical, more related to the platform and the dashboard, and of course we are happy to answer to them, but as they are not related to the topic of this webinar today, we are going to pass them to our colleagues who will answer the members who raised them. What I wanted to say, thank you very much for your very active participation. We had 72 participants, no, even more, yeah, even more participants to this webinar. We have again a webinar on the 18th of May. In the meanwhile, of course, your questions are always welcome directly to us at the headquarters in Brussels. Also, your coordinators and your local representative are there to support you. And very important, we know you know it, but save the date for and join us on the 14th of June. Register to join us at the General Assembly. We are really looking forward to seeing you there in a few weeks. Thank you very much.
Thank you and goodbye.